11:22 p.m. It's nice and late, but the best way to stay up late is to celebrate a Birds win. We're always hopeful, and we talk about it every week with the late schedule that the Birds have, all these primetime games. The only thing that makes it worth it is when they keep winning. Thanks for joining us this late on a Sunday night. I know everybody has to work tomorrow, but I know we're all so fired up. You can't even sleep at this point. I'm Jess Taylor. I'm here this week with John Stolnis as well as Rachel. Shane was at the game tonight, like we talked about last week. It was Shane's first Eagles game. He flew all the way in from Oklahoma to his
Wow.
first Eagles game. And I was like, wow, a Kelly Green game. Really hope they win for you. So I'm really glad that Shane got to see that game. But
Yeah.
it was a good one. I would venture to say this was probably, now there's still things to improve, things that went wrong, obviously things that could be better. This was probably their most complete game so far.
Yeah, I think outside of the two turnovers by Jalen Hurts, every facet of the team played about as well as you could expect them to play.
Mhm.
I imagine the offense, they're going to get a lot of the press, especially in the fourth quarter with that touchdown clinching drive, just
Sure.
a monster drive by Hurts and Brown and the rest of the offense. But the defense really deserves so much credit here, and most of the credit, I think, because this was far and away the best offense in football. This is a team averaging almost 500 yards and 40 points a game. And the Eagles held them to 244 yards in this one. They only scored 10 offensive points. They got to 17 because of a ball that got tipped into the air and got running for a touchdown on a pick six. Like Sean Desai's defense with some guys who you're mixing and matching and undrafted free agents and rookies who haven't gotten any playing time, and Kobe Dean's gotten his first game back. I mean, he's had to do so much, and he's been so creative back there on the sidelines making things happen. For me, this is a defensive win more than an offensive win, with the way they were able to shut down this Dolphins team that scared everybody.
Yeah, 100%. It was especially with the speed that they have on that offense and the different, creative things that they can do. And Shane and I have talked about this at length, especially last week after the loss to the Jets, and they talked about it on the broadcast. The Dolphins are the number one team in the NFL when it comes to pre-snap motion. The
Mm-hmm.
Eagles rank dead last in that respect. So the Dolphins, and you saw it tonight, they're constantly moving things around, constantly doing a lot of really different creative things. And you saw here and there that, the Eagles were getting burnt by some of those things because of the way that they were playing so far off the ball. But it's either, I say this all the time. It's not whoever has the most yards at the end of the game. It's who
Yeah,
scores the most points.
right.
So at the end of the day, you can let them go all the way up and down the field, but you can't let them score. So they were going to give them those kinds of things to not get beat constantly with their speed,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you have, the Eagles don't have the speed on the back end of their defense to be
Right.
able to match the speed on the offense of the Dolphins. And I thought Sean Desai did an absolutely phenomenal job with the matchups that he had, guys injured, moving people around. Obviously, like, you don't have your starting safety. You don't have your starting slot corner. You don't have the guy you brought in to be your backup slot corner. Everybody's down on injuries. Everybody's banged up. Things are happening left and right. That he did an absolutely phenomenal job tonight. And you're right. The offense is going to get the press, but the defense was absolutely phenomenal.
Well, and let's not forget that even if the Eagles had all of their starters at safety and linebacker, we're not really sure if they're good. You know what I mean? Like
Not
it's
much
the
better.
right, it's the weakest part of their team, and they came into the season knowing that. And
Yes.
really, there's no team in the NFL that can match speed with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Those guys are a matchup nightmare for pretty much everybody. So
Uh-huh.
one of the things you have to do when you're facing a team like Miami is you've got to get that pressure up the middle, which again, Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, Jalen Carter were doing that most of the night. Towards the end of the game, when it became obvious the Dolphins were just going to have to go into full-on passing mode, you saw Josh Sweat get active. The defensive line really did make a difference, and they were able to stop some of those runs. Even with all of that motion, the ball's going into the middle of the line most of the time, right? I mean, they're trying to get to the outside, and they were able to do that a few different times. But anytime they tried to run it in the middle, there was Jordan Davis and there was Jalen Carter to wrap guys up. And so that part of their offense was really relegated to nothing. They couldn't do anything running the football up the middle. And so with all that motion, with all that confusion, if you have two big boys in there who can get stops like that, that's kind of a neutralizer as we saw tonight. And they got that big interception from Darius Slay late in the game that really changed
Mm.
everything because the Dolphins look like they're getting ready to at least kick a field goal and make it 4 points, or the way they were going was looking like they were going to drive for a touchdown, but they got that pressure up the middle. They forced Tua to throw off his back foot. Darius Slay comes over and catches the floater, and then the Eagles convert, and that's the ball game. And so it was a defensive turnover, the pressure up the middle that forced Tua into a bad throw. And I think this is the game that gets Sean Desai a head coaching job next year, because what he did in this game, holding this Miami offense to 10 points, it was really remarkable. It was a tremendous, and all of the talk coming into the game, everybody was afraid of this offense for
Yeah.
good reason, and the Eagles really, really held them down. It was tremendous.
Yeah. And I mean, for a team that was averaging what I believe it's, the Eagles and the Dolphins, I think were 1-2, Dolphins, Eagles
Yeah.
in rushing yards per game. I think it's like 180 is what they were averaging on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
What did their final number end up being tonight that the Eagles were able to hold them to of
Yeah,
rushing yards?
I'll have to look that up. I think it was like 20 some yards or something like that. Maybe. Oh no, they added quite a bit towards the end of the game. So it was, they were in negative territory for a good
A
part of the
while.
first half. And then they started to pile it up a little bit there in the early and late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter with some runs. They started to figure some things out, but I
45
don't think
rushing
they
yards.
cleared 60. Wow.
45. A team
Wow.
that's averaging 180 yards on the ground held to 45 yards.
I mean,
That
that's
in a
just, and
that's
we,
that's it right there.
yeah, that's the ball game. And we knew coming into the game, this was strength on strength, right? Miami's rushing offense against Philadelphia's rushing defense. This is probably the best rushing defense in the NFL. And they did what they needed to do. Their trench guys were better than Miami's trench guys on those sides of the ball. And Miami was dealing with some injury issues on the offensive line, so that should be factored in too. But you play with who you bring to the field. And on this night, the Eagles guys were straight up dominating the line of scrimmage when Miami had the ball on offense. Really, it was a tremendous performance by those guys.
Yeah, but that's something that we've seen pretty consistently from the defense. The defense has
Hmm.
has has held their own, and they have come prepared and played their game every week, maybe with the exception of the game against the Commanders. That was a mess.
Yeah.
But other than that, last week something Shane and I talked about kind of at length was, how did that offense go back into the locker room and look that defense in the eye and for what they put out there last week.
Yeah.
The defense
Yeah.
has been doing this. The good thing that we saw finally today, and I think this is why the press is going to be this way, is because we finally saw the game that we have been looking for from the
Hmm.
offense.
Yeah. Yeah, this was complementary football, right? This is what the Eagles did so well in 2022 in most of their games, that you would get a big stop by the defense. The offense would take over. They'd go down on a scoring drive. The defense gets another stop, a little bend but don't break, but they get another punt. The Eagles take advantage. I mean, you have these two different things working in synergy. And in the fourth quarter, I mean, what a typical Eagles close out fourth quarter, right? I mean, the Eagles are up by a touchdown. The Miami Dolphins have the ball. They're driving. It looks like I said, they're going to tie the game up in the fourth quarter, but they get the pick, and then the Eagles go on this long drive that's just eating up clock. They're churning out these tush pushes, and we got to talk about the decision by Nick Sirianni to go for it
Yeah.
on that touchdown drive, because that's a game changing decision, right? They were getting ready to punt the ball away. And I think it was on their own, what was it, 25 or something
Something
like
like
that? Like,
that.
it was deep in their own territory. And he calls a timeout and sends the offense back out on the field to get a long yard. Like, this wasn't inches. This was a long yard. And the tush push, the brotherly shove, however people want to call it. I hate brotherly shove. I like tush push. That's my own little thing. But
Why do you
what
hate
you would,
brotherly shove? It makes it so special to Philadelphia.
I guess when I get used to something, Jess, I'm funny like that. I don't like change.
I just appreciate that other teams can't use brotherly shove, but that makes it
True.
so it makes it so much sweeter because everybody else wants to do this and they can't, and that's why they're mad about it. So
Hey,
now it's simply
yeah,
named for something for the Philadelphia Eagles, which makes it even better that other
yeah.
people try and fail so often. And Jalen Hurts squats 600 pounds, so
Yeah.
he just gets 5 yards every time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. So maybe I'll change my tune on that. But I mean, that's honestly, Jess, that's the play of the game.
It is
because I wonder how many other coaches kick that ball away in that
a lot.
spot. And with the way that a lot, right? I mean, it's not a small percentage. It's
No.
probably most. It's probably most coaches kick that ball away. And the Dolphins to that point hadn't done a lot offensively, but it seemed like they were starting to kind of get their act together a little bit
Yep.
before the interception. And so there was a danger there. You give the team the ball back and they go down and they finish what they started. And
Yep.
Nick Sirianni knows he's got this play that will get them a yard 99 times, literally 99 times out of 100. And it worked, and they had to do it again, or they, one series later, they got down to another fourth and short. They probably should have gotten the first down. I think they got a bad spot on
Yeah.
that AJ Brown catch. But yeah, I mean, those were huge calls, and calls that 10 years ago no coach is making. But Nick Sirianni pushed the right buttons, his players executed, and then the Eagles go on that typical long drive. They get that AJ bomb to get them close, and then Kenny Gainwell of all people pounds it in from like 4 yards out, and that was the ball game. That was the play of the game. That decision was. We talk about how do head coaches win football games. Decisions like that win football games.
Yeah. And it's at that point as well that it can be a complete momentum shifter, not even just because the Dolphins are getting the ball at, the Eagles 25 and right there to score, essentially as long as they don't turn the ball over, or at least getting 3 points out of that. The opposite point of that is if if they don't get it, that's what happens. But if they do get it, that is a complete gut punch
Mm-hmm.
demoralizer
Yeah.
to that entire Dolphins team. So you get one of them, let alone two on the same drive. There's no way that a team can try to come back from that. You have
Yeah.
completely demoralized in the entire opposing sideline with those two plays right there. Starting with the first one that was a long yard, and then the next one that was a little bit closer. You can't come back from that. You just can't. Mentally, I don't care how
Yeah.
tough you are, you can't come out there and execute after watching that happen twice and more times earlier
Yeah.
in the game. Those were
Well,
just the nail in the coffin.
yeah, and the thing too is that had to be demoralizing because he pulls the offense off, right? And the punter comes on, and you think the Dolphins defender's like, oh, we did it. You probably exhale in that moment, like,
Yeah,
oh, okay, we're getting off the field. And then they come back on, and you know what play is coming if you're the Dolphins defense. They're not sending AJ Brown deep on that play.
that's even
You know
worse.
you're getting yeah. So you're getting the brotherly shove. And you feel like, okay, I'm gonna go get some Gatorade. I'm gonna be able to sit down. Let me go look at the tablet. Let's kick up our heels while Tua does his thing. And at the end of the day, they get the first down, and that's a kick in the pants. That's a kick in the pants, and that was part of it. It's a psychological thing too.
And that could have easily been why Nick Sirianni did it in the way that he did, because he's kind of an ass. And if he was the
Yeah.
coach of any other football team, I would hate his guts. I would.
Oh, he's a
And I think a lot
villain.
of people would. But here, it works. It works really well, and I love that he's ours. Because I think that probably was part of it. He probably sent the punt team out there knowing he had no intention of punting that ball. Zero.
That's a great point, and that's certainly possible. I would not put it beyond Nick Sirianni to do that because he's a stinker. Like he would make me so angry if
So
if
angry.
he were coaching against the Eagles. And so yeah, it was tremendous for him to do that. It would not at all surprise me if he was playing mind games with the Dolphins at that point. Because if you're a defender, you've just got to be like, oh, I thought we were off the field, and just
Yeah.
that would, as a fan, I know that's what my reaction would be.
Yeah. No, that's totally true. And I think that 100% plays further into that demoralizing mind game. You let them
Hmm.
think that they're getting off the field. You call that timeout, send them right back out, and you line up you're just like, oh, oh, like it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah.
He's a
Well,
genius.
and that's the thing about this team is we haven't seen it in some different weeks, but this team does have a killer instinct. More than most Eagles teams we've ever seen, and that's what we saw in the fourth quarter. We saw Jalen Hurts. I know he turned the ball over a couple of times, and those are so frustrating. As the game went on in the second half, he took control. He asserted himself. After that pick six, to go to answer like he did in the Super Bowl after dropping the ball and it got run back for a touchdown. He goes down and answers with a touchdown right after that. He did the same thing here tonight. He throws the pick six. You got to tuck that ball when you got the safety right in your head, in your face.
Yeah.
Bad luck, of course, the ball falls into the hands of a Dolphins defender and he runs it in for a touchdown, but you can't throw that ball. He fumbles earlier in the game. It's a bad play. He comes right down and has that huge answer touchdown drive where he's making plays with his legs. He's moving on the run. He's making things happen. I mean, it was almost as if Jalen Hurts kind of willed them in those last two drives, those last two touchdown drives, saying we're not losing this game. You want to know why this man has lost twice in his last 24, 25 regular season football games? It's those kinds of drives where he just kind of takes it over.
Right, and that's why you pay him the money that you do and why he has a C on his jersey. That's why. Those are the intangibles that Jalen Hurts has. And I want to touch on one thing you said, and we were talking about, how he kind of willed them there, and you said he made some plays with his legs.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of I guess conflicting points, conflicting reports, conflicting thoughts on what is going on with him just to a certain extent. The red zone back to back to back to back quarterback draws, that section of the playbook needs to get tossed. I don't know
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. That's got to go. So that's one. Why they keep doing that, I'll never know. He was limping around a little bit in the first half. Looked like he might have tweaked something somewhere. There were conflicting reports on whether he came out with or without a brace on his leg. I think by the end, you could pretty clearly see that he did have one on underneath all of his socks and pants and hidden as much as possible. What are we thinking? Do we think that's something that's been lingering for a little bit? Because he has not done the same things that we're used to seeing him do with his legs. Or do you think he is just trying to, now obviously there's something going on because he has the brace now, whatever. But do you think that that's something he's been dealing with? Or do you think that he is just being a little bit more cognizant and there's been a focus on him being more cognizant about protecting himself, not taking those big hits, not consistently lowering his shoulder into linebackers that are his size or bigger? What do you think there?
I think it's more the latter than the former. Because when he has decided to tuck the ball and run, when he has decided to be aggressive, he looks just as dynamic as he ever has. Now, so I don't think there has been some kind of knee injury that has been limiting him. I feel like he's been kind of unsure. I think he's been unsure in the offense as a whole this year. The RPO game is just not there, and it hasn't been there all year. It doesn't seem like they want it to be a big part of what they do. They don't want Jalen tucking the ball and running. And that was such a huge part of what made the running backs so good last year and what made Jalen Hurts so good last year. So when Jalen Hurts is running the football right now, it's on a broken play, or it's when a play breaks down and he's got to get out of the pocket and he finds some open space. But the designed runs are not working right now. And it could very well be that the league has caught up to the designed runs and that they've got to try some other things. I was seeing online in that first series when they had those, you said, those back-to-back quarterback draws in the red zone, that Jalen Hurts was fooled on that. It looked like Miami was going to play cover zero and back everyone away from the line of scrimmage, and that they had their two safeties sneak up into the box just as he was about to snap the ball. And that's why he changed the play at the line of scrimmage to keep it and thought he could kind of weave his way into the end zone with everybody playing back. So I don't know how much of these play calls are necessarily on Brian Johnson inside the red zone. I know that Jalen Hurts has a lot of freedom to change calls and to call his own number or to do whatever. But I think as the game went along, he certainly was running even with the knee brace on. He still looked pretty good. But now you do wonder what's going on. Is this going to be something that limits him moving forward? Is this going to be a problem moving forward? Or is this going to be something he can play with that's minor? And obviously, we're not going to know that for at least another couple of days, I would think.
Or if we know anything at all, because
They might just decide not to tell us.
yeah, he could his leg has to be dangling off his body for him to not. Same with like Lane Johnson. Like there has to be like a limb disconnected
That's
that
right.
like, physically can't work for them to not be out there. But since we got to Brian Johnson in the red zone, I'm gonna pose the question that I posed to you right before we started the show, because I would love to see some of these comments come in, and I would love to actually get your answer because you wouldn't tell me. This was a question that I saw posed on Twitter. I forget who it was from. I'll have to go find it and give this person credit. But would you rather Craig Kimbrell in the 9th or in October. In October. Is Craig Kimbrell in October or Brian Johnson in the red zone?
That's an easy one. I would rather have Brian Johnson in the red zone and Craig Kimbrell in October right now. I mean, that's just I was you mentioned this before we started, and it's these would you rather questions are always interesting. Yeah, if Craig Kimbrell pitches in the 9th inning of an October baseball game at any point here, moving forward, provided the Phillies win Game 6 or Game 7, no, no more of that,
No?
please. But I think Brian Johnson, I think he's doing some good things, as the offensive coordinator, especially between the 20s. I mean, he really, the thing is, this offense does just seem to kind of get stuck sometimes. It's like they've got a bicycle, it's a pretty nice bicycle, but the chain gets stuck every once in a while, and you got to stop and you got to fix it, and your hands get a little greasy. But eventually, once you get it going again, it rides really well, and that's kind of what the Eagles' offense is right now with Brian Johnson. It feels like it just kind of it's moving, and then it just gets stuck, and Jalen Hurts looks unsure. He doesn't know what to do. There's a feeling out process in the first half a lot of times. I think what we saw in the second half was really encouraging in this game against a very, very good Miami team that was bringing pressure on Jalen Hurts throughout this game. And the way they moved the ball and converted touchdowns, a mixture of big plays, and they were good inside the red zone in the fourth quarter. They were able to make some things happen in the red zone. The Dallas Goedert screen was a really nice play call inside the red zone.
Really good play call.
Use your best playmakers inside the red zone. Find Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. Use those guys and do what you did. That was a really nice play.
Yeah, I agree. I also, and I think you make a good point about the different things that they are doing, that they are doing good things. It's not all bad all the time. But I think, for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations coming off of the year that they had last year, I think the frustration comes in where you go, okay, how long is that going to take? Like,
yeah.
You're not going to be able to get to and win a Super Bowl if that is the place that we're in with the offense and with the offensive coordinator through 17 games, right? Like, we're at week 7 now, and we're still kind of saying things like this. I think Hurts is still finding himself, or I think the offense is still trying to find their identity, or Brian Johnson's still trying to figure it out. Okay, well, how many weeks do we say that before we're kind of just like, this is what they are?
I'll say this. I think if you look at offenses around the league right now, if you watch, a lot of football on Sundays and you see how some of these other supposed good offenses are doing, the Eagles story can be told in many other cities right now. Like the Cowboys offense is kind of up and down and all over the place. The 49ers offense has been a little bit up and down with Brock Purdy, in the last game or two. They're going to play on Monday night. We'll see how they do against Minnesota, whether they bounce back. But you saw a down game from the Dolphins tonight. That offense did not look good tonight against Philadelphia. I mean, so I think defenses are, it sounds weird to say, defenses are a little ahead of the offenses, I think, right now this year. I mean, the Bills offense has kind of gone up and down. Justin Herbert, he looked terrible against the Chiefs today, and he's supposed to be one of the top young quarterbacks in the AFC. So, I mean, I think offenses in general are a little uneven still at this stage of the NFL season. That might just be the flavor of the 2023 season. And I think the Eagles are certainly doing enough in order to score enough points. And I think the league is set up in such a way that I think the Eagles are doing enough offensively to be a Super Bowl contender and win a Super Bowl. And it's good that there's room for improvement too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Let's see what the Twitter world is saying, because I would love to see what's going on. So we're going to bring Rachel in, and she's going to let us know who's getting fired. Is someone getting fired?
I saw one option. Somebody asked that the midnight green jerseys get fired.
That's fine.
Yeah.
We can live with that.
That's all I saw. So
that's the other thing. They couldn't lose on Kelly Green night.
That would be so bad.
That'd be awful. They couldn't lose. They looked that was tremendous. No notes on the way that they played during Kelly Green night. Phenomenal.
Yeah. No, it totally harkens back. Like I saw, you're watching Jalen Carter with the visor and the Kelly Greens. I thought I was watching Jerome Brown again. I mean, it was phenomenal.
The gray pants really too. I'm a fan of gray.
Yeah.
And the midfield old school Eagles logo. That is the most beautiful thing. I mean, it gets you weepy.
It does. It was, and I really appreciated that the broadcast played into it as well with the graphics and everything. I really
Yeah.
appreciated that everyone joined. And look, Shane's here saying hey to us. Shane, I'm so glad you got to
Yay.
enjoy your game. I'm so
Right.
glad that was the game you got to see. It was everything you could have asked for. And you know what? There were no special teams issues, so we don't have to yell about special teams.
And were there any penalties?
The Eagles were not penalized in this game.
Somebody
They
said
were
that
not
earlier.
penalized. Yep.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. And there were a lot on the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. If you're a Dolphins fan, you want to complain about something. I can come with you on that one. Like, obviously, the Eagles committed penalties in this game. They just didn't get called. You had the Bradbury face mask that got on
was
that
so
fourth
bad.
down play. It was a brutal non-call, and of course, the karma got the Eagles
Right.
when it got intercepted and run the
Mhm.
other way right before Tyreek Hill had a touchdown in his hands and booted it away. So it all evened out there. But yeah, to not get penalized at all. I mean, great. They played a disciplined game, and that's a really important thing. They didn't do anything so egregious that the refs had to throw the flag, but
Mhm.
we all know they committed penalties in this game. And certainly if it was reversed, we'd be looking at this and be like, how do we get 12 penalties or whatever it was and the other team get none? That's crazy.
Yeah, we're never on the good end of that, so I don't really know how to act at this moment with it.
Smug is how you act with it. That's
Yeah,
how we all do it. Yeah.
I'm just gonna be appreciative, thank the Kelly Green gods for that one, because there were a few like broken up passes where I had to stand there and hold my breath for a second, look around, make sure I wasn't missing anything on the screen, any yellow flag that came through out of nowhere. I couldn't believe a couple of them, but hey.
Well, I'll say too, just in keeping with the uniform and the jersey theme, the Dolphins uniforms are always lit. Like they're probably my favorite uniforms in the NFL. When you bring these Kelly Greens in against these Dolphins aqua blue with this may be the Super Bowl of NFL uniforms, what we saw here on Sunday Night Football. I mean, it is just beautiful what we saw.
It was.
Yeah.
It was, and it was so old school that
Yeah.
you just love it. All right, so the midnight green jerseys are getting fired. What
Yes.
else is going on in the world of the Twitter?
First complete game. That was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Just too strong. Feeling much better, especially after last week. No more turnovers. You guys touched on Jalen Hurts and his 2 sloppy turnovers. And so you guys already talked about that. Just trying to see him getting back to Jalen Hurts. Stop the turnovers, decide game ball, clean up turnovers. All hail decide.
Yeah.
So,
There's a theme there, I think.
yeah.
I mean,
Definitely.
it's the biggest. It was the biggest issue, right? I mean, with no penalties, with no real other issues, they still put up 30 points. Defense holds the offense to 10. The
Yeah.
biggest complaint is the turnovers. If they don't turn the ball over, I mean, that's a 40-10 football game.
Yep.
Yeah, well, it's not even 10 because they got their first 3 points was because of the first Hurts fumble. So you don't
Even better, 40-7.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Dolphins suck.
That's what we've learned here tonight is that the Dolphins are a fraud. That's absolutely what we've learned.
I would like to be clear. I said that on Babes on Broad 3 weeks ago that I thought the Dolphins were frauds.
Really?
Yes. I don't believe it at all. I didn't buy it for a second. I don't.
Right.
you're better than I am because I was like, oh wow, this team is legit.
No.
Yeah.
I don't believe in Alabama quarterbacks.
Okay.
And I don't consider Jalen Hurts an Alabama quarterback.
That's
Okay.
fair. Generally speaking, you're going to be in the right on that one. Any SEC quarterback, really. But yeah,
I don't believe in Alabama quarterbacks. Look at the 3 in the NFL right now. This week. Look at the 3 this week. Nope.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think the Dolphins will bounce back.
I do too, but they've also built
good
a
team.
way better football team around.
Yeah, they have.
So
They
far,
have.
collectively. They've got a really good defense. They've got really good weapons. Just when it comes down to it, I don't believe in the Dolphins.
No, I tell you one of the things the Eagles did in this game, and that was one of the things they absolutely needed to do, is they held the ball for so much of this game that the Dolphins offense really wasn't on the field for all that much time. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think they doubled them up, or at least came close to it. in terms of time of possession. And that's what they needed to do. The Eagles were not having a lot of success running the ball, but they had to keep at it. They had to keep doing it. And finally in the third and fourth quarter, late in the third, fourth quarter, their 2 touchdown drives, they basically just said, let's stop fiddling around with this. But they really did a good job keeping the ball, getting long drives, keeping Tua and Tyreek Hill off the field. And that's the way you beat the Dolphins, because they really have had a prolific offense so far this year. They really haven't been able to find anyone to stop them. And the only way to stop them is to frustrate them. And then part of frustrating them is keeping them off the field so that when they're on the field, they feel like they have to make a big play every time. And if they don't, convert a 3rd and 6 or a 3rd and 5 or whatever it is, the panic starts to build. Because when are we going to get the ball again? The Eagles just hold the ball for 6-7 minutes every drive, even when they don't score.
Yeah. It was 36 minutes and 43 seconds to 23 minutes and 17 seconds.
Not quite double, but it's almost like a 1/3 and 2/3, right?
Yeah. It's significantly different. I mean, if you have the ball, it's 13 more minutes.
Yeah.
13 and a half, give or take.
That's a quarter.
Yeah.
It's a quarter of football almost.
Yeah, that's exactly true. Exactly it. You're not going to win a football game that way.
And it was nice to see rookie Nolan Smith got his first career sack.
Yeah.
I couldn't even remember his name at one point. We were like, that's
right.
It's the kid, the kid they got from the thing. Yeah, the kid they got from the
other one from Georgia, the second lineman from Georgia.
Right.
Georgia. Couldn't even think of it. That's how that's how out of nowhere that one was. All right.
So is this their best win of the year, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about the Rams. It has to be.
It has to be.
Yeah.
It was their most complete win.
Yeah.
By far.
And against a great team. I know you're not a big fan. I think you still have your doubts about the Dolphins, but 5-1 coming in. They've beaten some really good teams. This is obviously a quality win.
Yes.
And the fact that they were number 1 rushing, number 1 passing, number 1 scoring. It was like you said, John, it was a scary team going into this game. They were scary. Yeah. And so the fact that they won, this is definitely a statement win for sure. And tomorrow, everybody's going to be talking about it.
Tomorrow we're going to hear exactly what I said, that the Dolphins are frauds, that no one actually believes in the Dolphins. They're not actually a good football team. That's what we're going to hear. And the Eagles are still sus, and we don't know what's going on. That's what we're going to hear tomorrow nationally. Yeah. You know that, Rachel.
Yeah.
That's what everyone's going to say. No, but you're right. In the long run of the season, I don't believe that the Dolphins are going to win a Super Bowl. I just don't. But coming into tonight, averaging almost 500 yards, scoring the points that they're scoring, the way that they're moving the ball, the way that the defense is playing, absolutely I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a competitive matchup than it was. I'm glad that it wasn't. I didn't have to, stress at my television for 3 hours. I really appreciate that, given what the Phillies have been doing to me lately. So, it was really good to just take the win and not be up all night because I'm angry.
Yeah, it was definitely stressful until the Slay pick. And then once that Slay pick happened and the Eagles got that touchdown, that's when you knew you were going to get on the winning side of this. And I'll say one other thing about this game for the Dolphins from their perspective. And I don't think enough of us were saying this in the days leading up to the game. This is a tough spot for Miami. It's an out of conference opponent. You're on the road playing in a hostile environment in prime time. And it was kind of a measuring stick game for Miami. I mean, I know a lot of us were down on the Eagles for the way they lost to the Jets, and for good reason. It was a brutal loss, a loss that should not have happened. But on the whole, the Eagles were still widely regarded as one of the 2 best teams in the NFL, most nationally, and even though we were maybe down on them a little bit, still a 5-1 football team that went to the Super Bowl last year and still has all this talent. That is a tough spot for a team like Miami to come in and get a win on the road against an out-of-conference opponent in prime time. And I don't think enough of us were taking that into account when we were thinking about this game. That's a tough game to win for a team like Miami coming in here. Yeah.
There's always Philadelphia is probably the worst city in the world when it comes to the recency bias of how they make their decisions. It's like, I'm sure you guys, we talked about it on the show last week, but I'm sure you've also seen it on Twitter, John, the graph that's like Philadelphia has 2 different moods, and it's cocky and distraught.
Yes.
And that's it. There's no in between.
Nope.
And that's completely accurate. There's no... it's straight to doom and gloom. There's no optimism. Nope. They lose last week, and it's like, well, they might not win another game ever again as long as I live until the day I die, whenever that may be.
These are
And
all
after tonight,
plausible
it's like
scenarios. Yeah.
Super Bowl. Like
Yeah.
there's no in between. We are kings and queens of the recency bias in this town.
Yeah, we go by the feels. You
Yep.
know? We go
Just
by the
vibes.
feels. We let
How
our
can you
emotions
not?
control us.
How can you not? But when you guys look at like the upcoming opponents on this schedule, the Dolphins was definitely one of the games that was circled. Now we're past that.
Yeah.
So then what other opponents would you guys say are going to be the challenging teams, or it's going to be hyped up more than it should be? Of course, the Chiefs, they're coming up in mid-November, but any other teams other than divisional opponents, that's always going to be a good one.
So I was gonna say what they've got the Commanders next week
Commanders?
at 1, then they
Yep.
play Dallas at home,
Then they get the bye.
then they
Yep.
get the bye, then they come out of the bye and play the Chiefs.
I think that's right. Yeah,
Yes.
they're in Kansas
And
City
then
against
they
the Chiefs.
play
That's Monday
Bills,
night?
49ers.
Monday night.
and they play the Buffalo Bills, and then they play the Niners.
Yeah. So that's a tough gauntlet, but again,
Yeah.
you look at this Eagles team is as good or better than all of those teams. I mean, I put the Eagles up against Kansas City.
Mhm.
You know, Kansas City didn't look like world beaters against the Chargers this week.
No.
I mean, so if Jalen Hurts can fix the turnover issues that have been plaguing him, I think we're seeing. I mean, I'm gonna write a book about Sean Desai at some point because I'm in love with what I'm seeing from him. The upgraded defensive coordinator from Jonathan Gannon to Sean Desai can't be overstated. I mean, it's just it's massive. So I like our chances against some of these other offenses that we're going to come up against. And the Bills are uneven. You know,
Yeah.
the 49ers have some injury issues. We'll see how that goes. I mean, I think the Eagles are going to come through this stretch fine. They're going to probably lose a game or two in there, but they're going to probably win more than they lose and come out on the other side in a really good position. They've got a 2-game lead in the NFC East right now, so it's good. It's all good.
I'm with you there. I think the biggest it's going to be maybe the mental hurdle of Kansas City might be the toughest component of that. But if you watch any of Kansas City Chiefs football or listen to the New Heights podcast, they are having the same problems that the Eagles are. They're driving the ball, they're not scoring in the red zone, and their defense is carrying them a lot of the way until they can get some points on the board. And they're struggling with turning the ball over as well. So, I mean, I still very much believe that one of the factors that go into this is the best teams in football on paper and the ones that had the most success the previous year, you're going to get the best shot from every team that you play. So the Kansas City Chiefs get their opponents' best shot they have every single week. And every, October, November, everyone's like, wow, should we be worried about the Chiefs? And then the Chiefs go and win a Super Bowl. So it's like, the Eagles were in the Super Bowl last year. They were unstoppable on offense. They're getting every team's best shot, especially on defense. They're doing everything they can to try to contain what's going on. And on defense, the Eagles need to step up to be able to maintain what the offense is being asked to handle here and there with some of these opposing defenses to just keep them in the game when they have the opportunity. They're getting every team's best shot. So we could be struggling through right now and in February be having a grand old time. So
and if this is what you call struggling, then these other teams, I just feel bad for them.
I feel bad if you're like a Denver Broncos fan.
Yeah.
They won today though, so
you don't want to be a Panthers fan. You don't
I'm
want to
gonna
be a
say
Bears
Panthers,
fan.
Patriots. Well, Patriots got to win today, but you don't
Yeah.
want to be a Patriots fan right now.
No,
you don't want to be a Patriots fan right now. They're
Mm-mm.
bad. They're a bad football team. A Packers fan, you don't want to be a Packers fan. They're a bad football team. Bad football team.
How about Detroit's loss today?
Yes.
If that's
Baltimore, and that was a blowout.
It's another out of conference on the road opponent. We have seen that this year. The 49ers did it to the Browns. It happened to the Eagles and the Jets. I mean, I know there's some people who don't like to talk about trap games or letdown games. When you are playing an out of conference opponent on the road, it is a recipe for a loss. Like if you're circling, you're looking on your calendar, you're saying, well, where are the losses coming from? You're going to get one of those every year at least. So
I'm going to take that into consideration next year. I'm going to pay attention to that better and see what happens. And we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But listen, I mean, that's just it. What time is it now?
Sweet
mama,
midnight.
it's 12:01. Oh my God, I got to go to bed. It's 12:01. But here's the thing: if the Eagles lose these games, I can't sleep. Like when When the Phillies lost game 2 to the Atlanta Braves, I woke up at 3 a.m. and was like, that really didn't just happen, did it? And I remembered that it did, and then I was awake. I could not go back to sleep. And I started my day at 3 a.m. that day because I couldn't sleep over the goddamn Phillies.
No.
So I really appreciate that the Eagles didn't do that to me tonight, so I can get some semblance of sleep before I have to get my child up for daycare in the morning.
Yeah.
They did you a service, and hats off to them for that.
Yeah. Thank God. But thank you everybody else for joining us this week. We've got so many comments coming in this episode, which is awesome that everybody just stayed up with us to hang out and talk about another Birds win. We love it. The Eagles are, what are they now? This is week 7, 6-1.
They're 6-1.
Yeah, the Eagles are struggling and they're 6-1. We're the worst. We really are. But oh yeah, don't worry, everyone. I got it. I've had the Kelly Green on all day.
I apologize. I didn't put any forethought into it at all.
Me either.
I gotta go and do the stream. I gotta get upstairs.
I've had this on all day. Thank you. I didn't just change
I gotta do
for
better.
The stream. I've been wearing this all day.
I love
long.
it. I'm here
Everyone.
for it.
Yeah,
Kelly Green was alive and well in my home. I do not. We do not mess with. I also have Kelly Green socks on too, but I'm not lifting my leg up so anybody can see that. We're not doing that. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you so much for all of your comments and everything. We really appreciate you guys joining us this late. Go Birds, go Phillies. The Phillies are going to win in 6 tomorrow. Can't wait to celebrate. We're going to have so much fun in the city. Don't think about the Sixers. The Flyers are doing okay. We love all these different things. But we'll be back next week. It'll be a 1 o'clock game, so it won't have to be in the middle of the night that you're here talking to us. It'll be great. Back against the Commanders. Hopefully they play a little bit better than they did last time. But make sure you're subscribed to everything with BGN. We've got lots of stuff coming out this week. For myself, John, Rachel, thank you so much again for joining us, and we will talk to you next week.